to you by Manscaped. Check them out at manscaped.com. Promo code TGT20 for 20% off your first purchase and free shipping. I'm your host, Mike Goodpastor. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
Oh, I am doing I'm okay. Next up, our co-host, or our special guest today, resident Detroit Lions fan, Sam McGinnis. He also likes the Red Wings in Michigan State football. Does it get any worse than that triumvirate?
I would have said the Cleveland Browns, except they don't suck anymore.
Well, they still suck, but during the
They don't
playoffs.
suck as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. 1981. This man combined for 26 points with Isaiah Thomas to help lead the Indiana Hoosiers 63-50 over the North Carolina Tar Heels. Also scored the last point of the game. He's a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and one of the tallest people I know. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley.
Afternoon or good morning, gentlemen, depending on what part of the United States you're in.
All right, so we'll start off with Steve's Colts. They played the Buffalo Bills this weekend. The Buffalo Bills may be the hottest team in professional football right now. The Colts, maybe the best offensive line. When we look at the Colts and Bills, Steve, what are the shots for the Colts to win this game?
They have to have a monster game out of Phillip Rivers. If they go one-dimensional with just Taylor in the running game, I don't think that they're going to be that hard to defend against. And Buffalo's quarterback, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. I think he's just too much for the secondary, for the Colts secondary. I don't think they have really anything. I think I've said all season long, the Colts secondary to me is a big play race secondary. They make a lot of spectacular good plays and a lot of timely plays, but consistent drives day in and day, or down in and down out, they're not that good, and I think Allen's going to pick them apart. Now, the only thing I say is it's playoffs. One and done is a different mentality. If Allen comes out a little sluggish or something like that, it could change the face of the game. Or if Taylor comes out and just starts running monster 253 yards again behind that offensive line, the game could be close, but I don't see really any way on paper for the Colts to win this game.
Yeah, I would think the key here, Sam Teets, is the Colts linebackers. I think they have to close the middle of the field for Allen. And you ask how they've got two good linemen, Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke. And if they can sink under the deep end breakers and force Allen to throw the ball underneath, I think there's a chance here. They've got to keep everything in front. They got to eliminate explosive plays. I just don't see how they cover Stephon Diggs.
Well, yeah, that's the issue. It's going to be the outside coverage that's really going to kill them because they can't cover these star wide receivers. They have a middle of the pack pass defense, actually below average pass defense this year. But if I was going to highlight one area of the Colts defense that could maybe change this game, they had the second best run defense in the NFL this season, only trailing Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they recently leaked the All-Pro team selections in the past, 20 minutes or so. And you got DeForest Buckner's up there, Darius Leonard's up there, the two best players on that Colts roster, maybe besides Quentin Nelson. If you get those guys both going at the same time, they will shut down the run. They will make this Bills team one-dimensional. The problem, like you said, is they can't stop Stephon Diggs. So even if they make him one-dimensional, they're still going to find ways to score. And Buffalo will probably finish this game with 35 points. I don't see how the Colts match that.
All right, I think the guy we got to look out for here, Teets, is Gabriel Davis, because it looks like Cole Beasley, the Bills are going to be missing some wide receivers. Davis has 7 touchdowns this year, which is second on the team. He's a guy that gets overlooked. I think this is the guy that really blows this game over the top because they're not going to be able to cover Diggs. And when Davis gets going, I don't even know if it's going to matter if they run, because the other thing is, even with those guys stopping the run, you have Josh Allen here who could do the damage with his legs anyways.
Yeah, and the Bills have been, like I said, they're probably going to be without Cole Beasley. They've been without John Brown late in the season. But Gabriel Davis kind of came out of nowhere. He's a rookie this year, 4th-round draft pick. But he's been one of the more productive receivers in the NFL this season, at least one of the more productive rookies. Like you said, 7 touchdowns, roughly 600 receiving yards. That's with him getting a few to notes and really picking up in the second half of the season. He is going to be a guy who can take over games and can dominate as well. And Stephon Diggs draws a lot of coverage. And he finished the last week against Miami with backup quarterback play for half the game. had 107 yards and a touchdown. He's a very good player, and if Stephon Diggs is taken out of the equation, Gabriel Davis is good enough to still help Buffalo score 28, 31 points.
Yeah, and Sam McGinnis, when I look at this game, the key is Phillip Rivers, and the key to me is this. I think that 20 pass attempts is about where he wants to be. And I do think they have to kind of be one-dimensional because they have to use that offensive line. They have to use Jonathan Taylor. They have to be able to pound the ball between the tackles. They need to make this 3rd and 3 instead of 3rd and 10 so Phillip Rivers can hit the short passes. And the key here is with Rivers, do not turn the ball over. The other concern is Jonathan Taylor possibly fumbling the ball. But I think right here to win this game, Jonathan Taylor has to be 150 yards or more for them to have a chance.
Yeah, and here's the thing on my part. I think if you try and actually turn this into a race between Phillip Rivers and Josh Allen, Phillip Rivers will start making mistakes and he just won't be able to do it. So if you go into it knowing that won't work, you got to come up with something else. And I think it does have to come down to Jonathan Taylor in that sense.
Yeah. So go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think a big secret here too. No secret, but I think an unknown factor is T.Y. Hilton. I mean, he's capable of blowing a game open on his own. If he decides to get up and play T.Y. Hilton football. I've seen that guy dominate football games in the secondary. I haven't seen him do it of late, really, and he's not been a big target of Phillip Rivers in the offensive scheme. But I think I would try and get him into the offense early and establish some type of a middle to deep threat passing game. The question is, I'm very suspect on Rivers' arm being able to get the ball to him.
Yeah, especially in Buffalo.
T.Y. is an unknown in this game that could sway things a little bit with the passing game.
Yeah, but I still think Jonathan Taylor has to be the key because you want to keep Buffalo's offense off the field because Sam Teets, they've run the ball successfully. They do it with more than just one guy, and you throw Josh Allen in also. Risley, control your dogs. But Sam Teets, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I just have to take Josh Allen. He's arguably the hottest quarterback in the AFC going into the playoffs, even hotter than Patrick Mahomes. We talked about Buffalo. They've been number one in my NFL power rankings the past couple of weeks. And that offense is the second most productive offense in the NFL, only behind Kansas City. So I don't see a way that you're going to stop the Bills and keep them below 30 points. I don't think the Colts are going to score more than 30 points in this game.
I already gave you the way. If they run the ball and shorten the game, they have a chance. I don't
even know if that's enough, Mike. I don't know if that's enough. They're going to make mistakes eventually. All you can have a
I think they will too.
15-minute drive or 10-minute drive by Indianapolis that maybe you get out of, and Buffalo will turn around, and Buffalo will go down the field in 3 plays, score a touchdown, and then you have to go back out there, and it's another 10-minute drive for Indianapolis, and it's 7-3. I mean, really, that's what could happen.
Once again, that is the key. They can't settle for field goals. If you end those 7 or 8 minute drives with touchdowns, in 1990, Super Bowl 25, it looked the same way. The difference was the Giants put the ball in the end zone. They'd keep the ball for 8 minutes. They give it to the Bills would score in 2. But in the end, it's a playoff game. And isn't there something to be said that Josh Allen last year failed miserably in the second half of a playoff game against the Houston Texans? There, I think, is as much pressure on Josh Allen as anybody in these playoffs.
I mean, it's him. The narrative for him and Lamar Jackson right now is they can't get it done in the postseason, and it's really coming down to the young quarterbacks that have to prove that they can manage these games. They're not going to fail in the spotlight. Like you said, Lamar Jackson certainly last year, that first year against the Chargers, and then Josh Allen against Houston last year in a game which the Bills. I mean, the Houston Texans tried to lose that game. Bill O'Brien tried to give that game away, and somehow Buffalo still managed to grasp it and take a hold of it.
Yeah, and since they won it, Bill O'Brien went ahead and gave the whole season away before the next year started so he could cut out the middleman. Sam McGinnis, who do you like? Colts, Bills?
I think I got to go Bills here too. I just don't trust that the Colts can replicate kind of something like the Titans where they were running and then keeping the Bills from scoring a ton. I don't really see that happening, but I would have to see that as if they were going to win, it would have to be something like that. But I just don't trust them enough to do that, especially with Phillip Rivers not being able to throw.
I see this going one of two ways. I think you either had the Bills come out, jump up early, and win the game easy, or the Colts are successful running the ball. They keep the game close, and then a Phillip Rivers interception or a Jonathan Taylor fumble cost them in the fourth quarter. I think either way, I think the Bills win the game. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, the one thing we haven't even talked about yet, which has been one of the bigger disappointments to me being a Colts fan, is the Frank Reich play calling. He tends to get real conservative in his play calling, and especially in the second half of a game. And I think if you're not going to open it up and go at Buffalo and not just be willing to sit back and take what you can get, you've got no chance against Buffalo. And I would greatly discount what Josh Allen did last year compared to what I think he's going to do this year in the playoffs. I think he may be the most effective quarterback in the NFL going into the playoffs. It doesn't mean he's the MVP. I just think he's playing some of the best football of any quarterback, probably along with Brady right now. But I just don't see the Colts having the manpower to ride for 60 minutes with Buffalo. I would like to think they'll give him a game, and I'll be sitting there tomorrow morning rooting for the Colts like heck. But I think realistically, this is Buffalo's game to lose.
All right, everybody goes with Buffalo in the first game. The second game is a divisional matchup between the Rams and Seahawks, who split their two games earlier this season. I think injuries will have a big role in this game. Rams coach Sean McVay has been tight-lipped about whether quarterback Jared Goff and his surgically repaired thumb will start Saturday. Seahawks safety Jamal Adams, meanwhile, has said unequivocally that he will be on the field. So we're going to get John Wolford or we're going to get Jared Goff against the Seattle offense that has not played well recently. Sam McGinnis, what do you think here?
I think it could go – for me, it actually depends on Seattle's defense. I think we saw the last time the Seahawks and the Rams played. I was watching that game, actually, and I've been very impressed about how the Seahawks have been able to turn their defense around. I trust Russell Wilson. I think a few bad games shouldn't – things happen for everybody. I wouldn't be too upset by that, and they still ended up winning their division. And I think Russell Wilson can turn it on at any time. My question just remains is, will the defense stay consistent? If they do, they'll absolutely win this game. I think they certainly have a shot to do that. I think the Rams could too, but if Jared Goff doesn't start, I don't see how that's going to be a possibility.
Well, my issue here, Sam Teets, is the fact that I don't know that the Rams can run the ball. And if they can't run it, they're rolling with Jared Goff or John Wolford. I expect Jared Goff to start, but it would surprise me greatly if he finishes. So I think they would have to be able to run the ball here. I don't see how they can score enough points to win this game.
Yeah, and even when they run the ball, at times they're inefficient. They'll run the ball, but only for like 3 yards per carry or something like that. They have not had a very good run blocking offensive line this year. And their running backs haven't taken much advantage of some of the holes that they've created, partially because of their youth and inexperience. But even if Goff's healthy, even if they're able to run, I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that offense. And they're running into a Seattle defense has Bobby Wagner in the middle. Jamal Adams is going to be lurking up by the box looking for opportunities to blitz. They're going to have Jaron Reed and Poona Ford in the middle. Those are two really good run stoppers. So I don't see a situation where Los Angeles' offense gets going. And really, even if John Wolford's in the game versus Jared Goff, I don't think it makes that big of a difference because Goff certainly won't be 100% healthy. If he was, he'd be practicing more often. And Sean McVay's trying to keep as tight as possible, not tell anyone what Jared could do until immediately before the game. I don't think the Rams are healthy enough offensively to be able to pull this off. I think the passing game will be the death of the Los Angeles Rams.
All right, Steve Risley. The Seahawks, I think, especially the last half of this season, have kind of transitioned back to their old school offensive identity with a more of a run-heavy approach, play-action pass from Wilson. The Rams are really good at defending a deep ball, probably better than anybody in the NFL. The Seattle game, passing game, looks disjointed. I think Seattle has to get back more to the rhythm concepts that allow him to get the ball out with speed. If they can run the ball, hit these short passes, I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball deep. So I think this game in the end, being a divisional matchup, will probably be close. But when it's close, don't you have to go with Russell Wilson over John Wolford or Jared Goff?
Yeah, but and I think this is going to be maybe the best game of the Saturday. Just in terms of a fun game to watch, because I think this is boiling down to Russell Wilson versus the Rams defense. I don't think Goff's going to be a factor one way. I got to believe in the NFL to come back from thumb surgery in 2 weeks. That's an awful tall order, and I don't really see Jared Goff as a Brett Favre type of football player. Who says
no, he definitely does not send naked pictures of himself to reporters.
Yeah, that too. But I don't see him as somebody who is going to suck it up and go hard at it. That could be wrong, but I think all the things you said about Russell Wilson are true. They've kind of migrated back to their old self with him getting out of the pocket and creating opportunities and darting back and forth and trying to wear down a defense or break them down a little bit. But the Rams are solid defensively. They've got a great pass rush still with McDonald and stuff like that. Aaron Donald, I mean. I
thought you meant Ronald.
What?
I thought you meant Ronald. Ronald used to be a baller back in the day.
Yeah. I think that I think this comes down to who has a better game, the Rams defense or Russell Wilson.
Well, when we pick this game, I think this may be. I think this has all the earmarked Sam Teeth of a 27-6 game, a game that's close for about a half, and then eventually the Rams defense just kind of wears down because Seattle's defense is stopping the Rams 3 and out all the time. So I think you get a close game for a half, and I think the Seahawks will slowly pull away at the end.
Yeah, the Rams have great defensive pieces, obviously, in Aaron Donald and the Rams, but at some point, there's going to be one big play Russell Wilson's going to hit. There's going to be one 45 to 50-yard bomb he's going to hit with DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, and that's going to break this game open. And after that, it's going to be a runaway train for Seattle. So I do think it's going to be a close game for maybe as much as 3 quarters. At some point, you can't stop Russell's offense forever. They're going to score and probably score 2 or 3 times consecutively towards the end of the game.
All right, just getting boring. We're all picking the same thing. Risley, you got the Seahawks also?
No, you guys have all said it. Wilson's kind of been all over the map the last 3 or 4 games. I mean, I've seen him play a couple games here and seen spurts of him where it's like, yeah, that's not the Russell Wilson I used to know. And I still think he's capable of being that Russell Wilson. And if he does, I think your forecasts are accurate. But right now, I'm of the old school of defenses wins championships. And not that I think either one of these are championship contenders, but I'm going to put my money on the Rams defense to hold tough, hold tight, and carry a little bit of pride in this franchise right now. And, I think his defense is going to do its own and contain Wilson as much as they can and minimize his damage. And if we just get Goff not to make any mistakes, that gives the Rams a shot. And like I said, that defense is strong.
All right.
So I'm going with the Rams.
Sam McGinnis, do you want to go ahead and jump a game up on Risley too and go ahead and take the easy pick with the Seahawks?
So I'm going to take the Seahawks, but on your point of Jared Goff not making any mistakes, he is a professional at making mistakes. Mm-hmm. Him and Daniel Jones up there constantly turning the ball over, so he will make a mistake, especially in a
Wait a second. You can make fun of Jared Goff, but don't put Daniel Jones in the same stratosphere because Jared Goff's not very good, but Daniel Jones is in a whole different world.
Yes, talent-wise, yes, but in the turnover ratio, they're actually not that far apart.
That's just because Jared Goff plays on a better team. Nah, that made no sense. But, all right, we're all going to go ahead except for Risley and make the right pick, which is the Seahawks. Next up, Sam McGinnis, the Washington football team against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady versus Alex Smith. Seems like a mismatch. And I would say the only way you could get a win here for Washington is there is no way. I think Washington can pressure Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady. The only way they win the game is if they pressure him and they hurt him early and he comes out of the game. Other than that, we're talking about Brady who's 26-7 in his playoff career when sacked 2 or fewer times, and 4-4 when sacked 3 or more times. So Washington has a great defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio, but still on offense, Alex Smith is a great story, but he's still not in the top half of the league at quarterbacks.
Yeah, no. It's fortunate for them in a sense that they are able to win more often with Alex Smith than with Dwayne Haskins. I would expect that anyway. But yeah, this is a complete mismatch. And the only way the Washington football team could somehow pull out a win is if Alex Smith turned into a bomber and started absolutely just destroying Tampa Bay's defense. And then on top of it, they'd have to get a whole bunch of sacks on the other end, which is possible, but I don't expect both those things to happen.
All right, Steve Risley, to think about the Washington defenses, they have not surrendered. 3 touchdowns in a game since week 10. when you look at this, that has to play into effect somehow. But you almost think if they're going to win, they would almost have to score on defense.
Yeah, in terms of you said they hadn't given up 3 touchdowns in a game since
Week 10.
Week 10. Well, I'd go back and say there's the first time for everything. I think that they'll give up 3 touchdowns in this game. I think Brady will have his will at him. I think the Redskins got to get a lot of lucky breaks to win this game, and it includes scoring a defensive touchdown, at least 1, maybe even 2. But I think those things have to happen for Washington to even be in this game. Good call.
All right, Sam Teets. I think the big key here is Ronald Jones. I think if Ronald Jones is healthy, this game is definitely a wrap, because if he is healthy, he can back that pass rush off a little bit. Ronald Jones is a good running back. Most of the year has not been healthy. If the Bucs can get him healthy here, I think they're definitely a big-time contender to go to the Super Bowl. I think that's the big question. Do you see a way Washington could win without Tom Brady getting COVID?
Really, I don't. Unfortunately, it's just how it is. I think we're all going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I will say this. Tom Brady has not been good against the blitz this year. He's not been good when pressured this season. In the past, they're good at picking him apart in situations like that. He's not been good in those situations this year. So that plays into Washington's hands. Unfortunately, I don't think Washington has the defensive backfield that will be able to take full advantage of that, especially against guys like Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown. I don't know if they'll have Mike Evans or not, because he hyperextended his knee this past week. But if he's available as well, I don't think you have players that can match up against all those guys. Someone's going to come open here. So I don't care that Washington's the 4th best scoring defense or 2nd best in total yards. They just don't match up well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and very few teams would.
I disagree, because I think you don't have to have the DBs to match up with the wide receivers. Super Bowl 42, the Giants didn't have the DBs to match up with the wide receivers. You can eliminate that mismatch with your defensive front. And with Chase Young, Montez Sweat, they can neutralize that. I think this whole game, on whether it's close and Washington has a chance or not, is whether Washington can get to Tom Brady early, rough him up, and make this game a little bit different than what we think. I do think that they have the defensive front to do that. And yeah, the thing is this, if we're playing 7-on-7 teats, I would agree with you. But we're not. So if Montez Sweat and Chase Young are on Brady in about 1.5 to 2 seconds, it doesn't matter what the DB wide receiver matchup is.
I see your point. I really do. It happened in the past, but also the teams that tend to beat Brady in the playoffs have both good defense and really good secondaries. Rarely do you find teams that have just one of those things that are able to beat Tom Brady in the playoffs.
But rarely do you find a team 7-9 in the playoffs, which is why you have that situation here.
And you got a point there. I'll agree with you on that.
All right, so everybody is picking Tampa except for Steve, who's taking Washington. Correct, Steve?
No.
Okay. Bobby Sheridan also said that Risley is now 1 game up on everybody because you agreed with him on the Rams and Seahawks game.
Bobby Sheridan's a smart man.
Yeah. Too bad he's going to miss on this one. Really bad. All right, next up. I just got to talk a little bit of crap because he did to me on a little tweet. So next up, I think the most interesting game of the week, Sam Teets, the Baltimore Ravens at the Tennessee Titans. The kryptonite for the Baltimore Ravens defense the last 2 years has been Derrick Henry. He rushed for 195 yards in the divisional round playoff upset over the Ravens last year. He ran for 133 yards, including a 29-yard touchdown run in overtime to seal the victory against them. So when you look at this, Derrick Henry is the key to this game. The Titans' defense has not been good. They've actually been bad. The Ravens' passing game with Lamar Jackson ranks last in the NFL. So I think a lot of this depends on Derrick Henry here.
It's on Derrick Henry. It's on the running game for both of these teams. I mean, you look at it, they're 1-2 offensively in rushing production this year. Baltimore's 1, Tennessee's 2. And that's all because of the ground game. And really, Ryan Tannehill is a huge difference maker as well, because the Tennessee Titans can throw the ball downfield. They have Corey Davis, they have A.J. Brown, they have John Smith at tight end. They can throw the ball 45 to 60 yards downfield like they did against the Houston Texans, in Week 17 when they ended up kicking a game-winning field goal. They can have those big plays. You won't see that from Baltimore. Baltimore's not going to have the big plays where you're going to throw the ball 45 yards downfield. Lamar Jackson just doesn't hit that as often as someone as good as Ryan Tannehill does. I think that's the biggest difference in this situation is that if you're Baltimore, you have to have the long extended drives where you're running the ball 15 to 20 times. If you're the Tennessee Titans, you can score in 3 or 4 plays. They're that good. I think it's going to be the difference here.
Yeah, but how about this?
Offensively.
If I'm Baltimore, the way I play this game, and it may not make any sense and nobody may agree, I would throw the ball deep. The Tennessee Titans gave up 36 touchdowns through the air this season, which is tied for the most ever by a playoff team given up. When I look at that, this game screams to me Lamar Jackson. If the Ravens are going to win this game, Lamar Jackson has to be able to do something in the air. The weapons for the Ravens aren't great. I think we know the Ravens are going to be able to run the ball, but if I'm playing the Ravens, I'm stacking the box and I'm making Lamar Jackson beat me, Sam McGinnis.
Yeah, and I think actually what Sam Teets said about Ryan Tannehill is also a big factor because I think this could go down one of this way because, pardon me, John Harbaugh, I almost said Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is actually he's a good coach. I think he'll try and come at this understanding Derrick Henry. He won't lose to Derrick Henry solely again. So I think this will actually come back to Ryan Tannehill's shoulders, and I think he'll be able to produce, and that's actually what will win this game. I still don't trust Lamar Jackson. He's having a rough year. Whether he'll do better next year is irrelevant. The point is how it is now, and I don't really trust him or that offense.
All right,
Cut in
Steve
there for a
Risley.
second. Sorry, just to cut in there and add on to what Mike said. The Titans do have the 28th ranked pass defense. If you're going to throw, it's not bad. If you're Lamar Jackson, it's not bad. You have to throw against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL.
No, if the way I look at this, Steve Risley, is this. If I'm John Harbaugh and I ever want Lamar Jackson to be a big-time quarterback throwing the ball, this is the game to do it. You can bring him out in a playoff game here, maybe throw for 500 yards and win this game. I really think they could. I think the Titans' pass defense is that bad. I think in the end, the thing that's going to be the mistake is John Harbaugh is going to do what John Harbaugh does, and they're going to run the ball. And eventually, as Teach talked about in the Colts-Bills game, I think that you end up settling for a field goal here or there. You get a penalty that throws you off. It's hard in a playoff situation, and Baltimore's proved this the last 2 years. To have a 10-play drive with no mistakes, so you've got third and short all the time, and I think in the end, the Titans are going to win this game because the Ravens are going to make the error of trying to just run the ball and control the game. Steve?
I agree with Little Sam, which is McGinnis.
Okay.
I think the key to this game is Tannehill. Truthfully, I think Henry's going to get his yards. You're not going to stop him. Baltimore's proven they can't do it. I think it's an awful lot to ask Lamar to come up and turn into a 500-yard passing quarterback when he hasn't really done it all season long. I think that's a far-fetched hope. But I think Tannehill creating a second window of opportunity for Titans determines how easy of a victory this is for Tennessee, basically.
Well,
I just don't see Baltimore having the full complement to stop a well-playing Tannehill and a run-amok Derrick Henry.
Well, I believe this. I believe the Baltimore secondary is pretty good. I think the Baltimore secondary does not match up against Kansas City. I think they match up better against the way the Titans play.
Yeah,
I would stack the box, and I'm telling you, Lamar Jackson, if I was his coach on Monday, I'd have brought him into the office, I'd have sat him down, and I said, hey, you always got to hear about how you can't throw the ball and win a playoff game. I believe you can do it. We're going to do it this week. And I think you would see Lamar Jackson's confidence take off, and you would have a chance to actually make Lamar Jackson a significantly better quarterback. And the other thing that would do is next week, if you're playing Kansas City or Pittsburgh or whoever, that's going to give them something more to worry about than just putting 8 or 9 guys in the box. I'm just telling you, it may seem different, but I've always kind of been a contrarian. So I'm going to do the opposite of what they think I'm going to do. That's if I believe Lamar Jackson could do that. I believe Lamar Jackson can throw the ball deep down the field. I think he has issues on short passes. So you come out, I would run the ball, and you would still run the ball a lot. But when I throw, I'm throwing the ball deep because just with his arm strength and ability to throw the ball deep down the field, it's going to back a safety or two out of the box after you've done it a few times in the first quarter, Sam Teets.
Well, I think that's why he had so many passing touchdowns last year. There were a lot of deep hookups with guys like Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, especially at tight end. And Andrews is a guy who will create mismatches with linebackers or even safeties that try to cover him. So you're looking for someone. Look at Mark Andrews going right down the middle of the field. He'll get open. We've seen Marquise Brown a couple times this year just beat corners and safeties and double coverage down the field with speed. I think there will be opportunities for those deep bombs. Unlike I said earlier, I said he's going to have trouble with those. I'm reversing my stance. I think Lamar Jackson will have more opportunities to throw the deep passes. And the short ones, like the short and intermediate throws, are what we have to worry about with him. But the deep bomb is usually there.
All right. So
let me interject a little fun story for you guys. Back in my junior year, I was a 3-year starting quarterback at Lawrence Central High School in Indianapolis. And we were getting ready to play North Central, which, Mike, I think you're familiar with North Central.
I've heard of him before. But now, when you did you play there or did they play at your place? Because was the carriage ride a long time for the team? Or
I think, we got, it was, I was in the pumpkin. But anyway,
the horse drove
on the Monday of the week. On the Monday of the week, us playing. Now we had a formidable running game with Ty Dickerson and Tim Petty. We had 2 all-state running backs, and we were ranked like 3 or 4 in the state. We were undefeated. And J.R. Bishop, our coach, calls me in and says, "Now, Steve, they're going to be trying to shut down a running game. So I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to an all-out vaunted passing attack this week. We're going to throw the ball 30 to 40 times in this game. So be ready." Come Friday night, I couldn't get enough puke on my uniform. I think I threw 4 or 5 picks.
Yeah, but Lamar Jackson won a Heisman Trophy. There's levels here, Steve. Levels.
I know, but it's that whole mentality of like all of a sudden, oh my God, now I'm scared shitless all week.
Lawrence Central, Baltimore Ravens.
I understand, but it's still the same mentality of like, don't tell me we're going to change things. I'm very comfortable with the way things are right now, and we're winning that way. We're in the playoffs. What do we want to broke? So our goal was to go back-to-back undefeated. We went 10-0 and 9-1.
Well, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is there. Risley will puke on himself if he has a little bit of pressure. So it's a good thing that last free throw against North Carolina, y'all weren't down 63-62.
Of course, your sophomore year when you start a quarterback and you outscore your opponents 374-6 for the season.
Yeah, but when your offensive line never lets you get touched and you have 2 stud running backs to go D1, it makes it much easier to play quarterback.
Yeah, I did never even do what pressure was until that game. I thought quarterback was just something kids played that didn't want to get their uniforms dirty and get the good-looking chicks after the game.
The good-looking chicks. That is kind of – is that misogynistic or there, Sammy Teets? I'm not sure. You went to college.
Why are you asking me that? Why are you asking me that? Why are you trying to put me on the spot so much?
I figured you – oh, yeah, you don't know what words are except if it has to do with sports. I forgot.
I don't think either one of those two have even gone on a date yet.
No, probably not.
Probably not.
No, I know Teets hadn't just because of the beard. That scares people away. They think he's Bigfoot.
McGinnis doesn't look old enough. Did your mom and dad drive you around when you go on a date, McGinnis? You ride in the back with your girlfriend and then go to the Dairy Queen and get a Slurpee or a Frosty or something?
Well, there's already a problem. Hold up. There's already a problem in your assumption that I'm lucky enough or good looking enough to get a date in the first place.
Anybody can get a date.
Yeah, Risley got married. So there's plenty of hope for you, McGinnis.
And you know what? 37 years later, I'm still married.
Yeah. For the 8th different time. But
Nope. Did it right the first time. All right, move on. I think this is Tennessee's game to win. I think they just have too much firepower for Baltimore.
Sam McGinnis, after being verbally abused by your elder, what do you think?
That's normal. I literally played multiple football seasons with you. I'm used to that.
What are you talking? Whoa! What have I ever verbally abused you?
Hey, Sam.
You know what, McGinnis? If you'd make a dang tackle, I'd have never said a word to you.
Hey, Sam. Let me tell you one thing, McGinnis. You know what people used to say about Bob Knight? The day he stops yelling at you or talking about you is the day you better be worried. That means he doesn't give a damn about you anymore.
Now everybody's going to think I picked on Sammy. That's a bunch of crap.
Oh, that's all right. He's easy pickings.
No.
I think I'm going to have to go with the Titans here, but contrary to what Steve said, I don't think this is their game to win. I think it'll be a very close game, but I do think they'll win it in the end regardless. I think this could be the wild card game of the week, I think.
All right, Mr. Teets.
I'm going to go with different. I'm going to go with Baltimore on this one. I trust the Ravens a little bit more just because of John Harbaugh. Now, granted, they could come out there and blow the game in the first quarter. That's totally possible. Baltimore's a team that will.
They had John Harbaugh last year when they got beat, and this year when they lost those games too.
Yeah, I did.
I just thought I'd bring that up in case you didn't know.
I know you like poking holes in my logic like that, but I am going to side with Baltimore. I have a lot of respect for the Ravens, and I do think there's a chance here with the defensive personnel they have. They could slow down Derrick Henry and give the Titans a few fits on offense.
Yeah, I'm going to do this. I think that the Ravens will run the ball too much. I think the Titans win a close game. I think it might be high scoring for two teams that are going to run that ball that much too. So I think this could be like a 30-27 game. I think it's going to be a heck of a football game. I do trust Tannehill over Jackson. I would trust the Ravens running game over Derrick Henry. And that's just because there's multiple guys there that can get this done. If Derrick Henry starts to get stopped, there's no backup plan. Ryan Tannehill's not going to all of a sudden run for 100 yards. There's not going to be a second or a third running back come in and pick up the pace. So I think that worries me there.
Mike, you don't think that Tannehill can throw for 300 yards?
I don't think he could run at all. And I think if you take away,
so they just shift to their passing offense.
This is the thing. The major shift to the passing offense is this. They are successful passing, not because Ryan Tannehill is one of the 5 most talented quarterbacks in the league. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league right now because their ability to run plays to his strength. I mean, I don't think if you take the run away, I don't think Ryan Tannehill can come out and go 30 for 37 for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. But if the running game's decent, even getting just 100 yards, I think he can be 20 for 28 for 240 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think there are limits to Ryan Tannehill's game. There's limits to Lamar Jackson's game. There's like 5 quarterbacks in the entire NFL that have no limits to their game. Ryan Tannehill's not. Ryan Tannehill is nowhere near Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Josh Allen. He's not on that playing field. So, if you tell me right now they're going to shut down Derrick Henry, if Derrick Henry was with one of those other 5 quarterbacks, I would believe that they would win the game. I do not believe Ryan Tannehill couldn't win the game, but I don't have a lot of faith that he's going to win the game like that, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. The only thing is that I watched Tennessee play enough this year to know that, man, Derrick Henry gets a lot of those yardages on his own. I mean, he creates up holes for himself, and he runs over people, through people, around people. He doesn't always rely on his offensive line to, like Taylor does for the Colts. He relies on that offensive line to cut him holes, and then he scoots by everybody. Derrick Henry he says that no hole, I'll make one.
But it is possible to slow him down. So there are games this year where he has not had great games. I mean, he can
this is
again, I think the respect that Tannehill's going to get is even if you shut Derrick Henry down for a short period of time, you ain't going to shut that young man down for the game.
Yeah, you can.
You.
Steve, listen to me. Hear me out. There's 4 games where Derrick Henry was held under 100 yards. The Green Bay Packers held him to 98. The Packers are in the playoffs. The Browns held him to 16. The Browns are a playoff team. Let's go down here. The Steelers held him to 75. The Steelers are a playoff team. The Bills held him to 57. They're a playoff team. Now, the Jaguars even held him second week of the season at 84 yards. But the thing here that really sticks out to me that does worry me is I see that the 4 teams that held him under 100 yards are all playoff teams. And when you look at his big games, Texans 250, Lions 147, Jags 215, Colts 178 is impressive. The other Colts game 103, Ravens 133, impressive. Bengals held him to 112. Bears held him to 68, playoff team. Texans 212, not a playoff team. Vikings 119, not a playoff team. So when I look at this, the majority of his yards here, when I look at it, have been gained against teams that were not playoff teams. That's a pretty good point too, isn't it, Teets? I never noticed that until I looked at these stats.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was trying to pull up his numbers. That he didn't have a great game against Pittsburgh or against Chicago or against Buffalo. The only great game he had ironically, against a team that made the playoffs was Baltimore with 133 in Week 11. Other than that, he hasn't had a dominant performance against
the Colts game. The Colts game, he had 178. That's one of his best games of the year. And when you look at the under 100-yard games, we'll see the Packers they lost to. Did they beat the Browns? They beat the Browns. No, they lost to the Browns. That's 0-2.
They lost to Pittsburgh.
They beat the Bears. They lost to Pittsburgh. Let's see. They lost to the Bills, right? Or beat the Bills?
No, they beat the Bills, actually.
All right. So in the games where he was under 100 yards, they are 3-3. So actually, when I look at this, I'm going to tell you I'm going to pick the Tennessee Titans. It's because that I've always badmouthed Lamar Jackson because I think he's overrated. But I think this Tennessee Titans team's overrated. I think there's huge problems on defense for the Titans. I'm going to pick the Titans in a close game. If I'm betting the game, I'm taking the team that's getting the 3 points, which is the Titans, just because I think it's going to be that close. So I'm going to go, and I know Risley's going Titans. Or Risley's going Titans, right?
Yes.
You other two, let's see. The only one going Ravens is Mr. Teets, correct? Now, I'm going to go Titans also just because I know Sammy McGinnis and Steve Risley are almost always right.
If you say
Fair.
so.
Oh, I said that just to make Sam feel bad for saying that I used to harass him on a football field. Next up, the Chicago Bears at 8-8 will battle the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are the number 2 pick. The Saints could potentially get both wide receiver Michael Thomas and running back Alvin Kamara back in the lineup. How's that look right now, Sam Teets?
So Michael Thomas has returned to practice ahead of the game. Alvin Kamara tweeted out yesterday, "See you on Sunday," which a lot of people are reading to the fact saying that he's going to play for the playoff game. So it sounds like they're both going to be available for this matchup.
All right, so that tells me the New Orleans Saints are going to bloody up the Chicago Bears and beat the crap out of them. Risley, what do you think?
This game's going to be closer than you think.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know there was a period at the end of that. So are
Yeah,
you?
I can't. I'm still liking my boy Trubinsky.
His name's Trubisky, but I think this. I think the matchup problems with Thomas and Kamara is way too much. I look for him to take Kamara, kind of flex him out in empty sets, clear out the boundary. It'll create space for him, and I just don't see any way the Bears get this done. Mitch Trubisky is Mitch Trubisky. You are what you are. I don't care if you played 5 great games in a row or not. And David Montgomery, I think here is the key. He scored a rushing touchdown in 5 straight games. It's the longest streak since the Bears in 1990 with Neil Anderson had 5. I think this will be Sam Teets. Don't you think this looks a lot like that Giants-Bears divisional playoff game in 1990?
Oh, yeah. I'm always going back to 1990, revisiting the games from that year. Enlighten me, Mike. Enlighten me.
You born in 1990?
Well, no, he wasn't.
No,
and in
obviously
1990, the Giants were the big dog. I mean, they were the number 2 seed. The Niners were 1. The Bears had a good year. Mike Tom, Zach, and the guys. They had Neil Anderson. They went to the Giants, and they got beat 31-3. I think this matchup is similar. The Giants are a high-powered defense. I think the Saints are a high-powered defense. Not like the Giants, but on the other hand, the Saints have way too much offense. And really, Risley, I just like to teach the young kids about the history of the game.
Yeah, the only thing that and I'm stretching it here, trying to make something out of this game. On paper, this should be a rout for
New Orleans.
New Orleans. But I don't know. Is there any chance here that New Orleans is maybe looking beyond Chicago here, or are they disciplined enough not to let that happen?
I would say, I'll let Teeth answer this, but I'll answer a little bit by saying with what's happened in the last few years, I don't think they can afford to overlook anybody.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, look, crazy stuff happens to the Saints in the playoffs. They have to take every single game very cautiously here.
What I'm
especially
saying,
if this is Drew Brees' last game with the Saints, possibly, or his last season with the Saints, you might not get an opportunity under Sean Payton or during his time with New Orleans. So you might not be in the playoffs. You might not be at 1 or 2 seed next couple of years after Drew Brees retires. You have to focus in here and play like this is the most important game of the season, because it is for you at this point. You're guaranteed you're going to get past Chicago, even if they're heavy favorites.
Okay, fair enough. Then if that's the case, I think the Saints in a walk away on this one.
All right. Bobby Sheridan just tweeted at Sam Teets is the only one that got the Ravens game right. We'll see. And yeah, I gave you a lot of reasons, and you can shake your head, Bobby. But I'm telling you this, John Harbaugh, I don't think is going to trust Lamar Jackson the way he should, even though he shouldn't, to throw the ball deep. Lamar Jackson will get them beat. All right, McGinnis, you want to go ahead and pick the Bears since they're in the Lions division?
No. I will say this, though. Whether it will be this game or in coming games, Drew Brees at some point in the playoffs will fall off a cliff. I've been saying this all year. I think Sam Teets.
Wait a second. You know what, McGinnis, I'll give you this, though. Is it Drew Brees falling off a cliff, or is it Sean Payton?
Might be a bit of both.
So they're like Thelma and Louise. Have you ever seen Thelma and Louise, Sam McGinnis?
No.
Jeez. Sam Teach, you ever seen Thelma and Louise?
I'll let you get one guess what my answer is going to be.
What are we going to do with these kids?
I don't know, Mike. You know what the worst part about the end of Thelma and Louise is, Mike?
What?
The damn car went over the cliff.
Yeah, the car was nice.
Screw the chicks in there. I mean, it's a damn car.
Will you quit calling them chicks? We're going to get in all kind of trouble.
Oh, I thought we could say whatever we wanted to on
We can't
Roku
say chicks.
or Rockfin.
We're not just on Rockfin right now, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, the young ladies, actors or actresses of high quality and.
All right, put it like this. Thelma and Louise were best friends that got in a car, drove off a cliff, and died together. So that is the quickest way I can give you a Sean Payton, Drew Brees synopsis. So there you go. Have you ever?
Yeah, that's just my concern is if somehow this week Trubisky stays what he's been doing for these last few weeks, and then all of a sudden Drew Brees decides this is going to be one of the playoff games that he falls off a cliff, I could see it then being that.
Yeah, but it's also possible that when he falls off the cliff, he'll land on Mitch Trubisky and they'll still win the game.
That's true. That's very true. You see, whether it's this game or whenever it is, the Saints won't win a Super Bowl right now. I mean, just because I don't trust Drew Brees over the last couple of seasons, specifically during the playoffs. But I don't think it'll be this game. I think they'll get the win, and I think he'll either choke next week or the following.
He's choking either way. All right, everybody's picking the New Orleans Saints here. Next up, the game of the week. The Apocalypse matchup, the Cleveland Browns. First time in the playoffs since 2002 will go to Pittsburgh, the scene of the last time they went to the playoffs. Do you remember that game, Teets? Look it up real quick.
What was that? I don't know if I was watching football at that time.
It was 2002.
I was 3 years old.
Were you Yeah, you weren't watching football?
That was the year I was born. I can't remember it. I probably wasn't even alive for that game.
Oh, man.
Hey, McGinnis, do you buy youth-size hoodies?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Why do you have to harass?
No, I got sent to me by mistake a youth XXL hoodie.
Oh, you can wear that. You can wear that, McGinnis.
If Sam McGinnis can wear it, I'll send it to him. He looks like he wears youth sizes.
Hey, Sammy's like 6 foot, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
What?
See, I must have gotten yours because I also got a XXL for whatever reason.
That's not big enough to fit Risley.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. All right. So in 2002, the Cleveland Browns fans were all excited because they made the playoffs. And then they were up like 24-7. And then they realized they were the Cleveland Browns. They got outscored 29-9 the rest of the game and lost 36-33. Chris Fuamatu Mauafawa had a 3-yard touchdown that won him the game on a pass from Antoine Randall, who went to what esteemed university, Steve Risley?
Indiana University.
There you go. So are we going to get the classic matchup, or are we going to get Cleveland being Cleveland? So you got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt. I mean, Baker Mayfield against the Pittsburgh Steelers team that has really played one good half of football in the last 6 weeks. Teets, tell me why the Steelers are going to win, and don't just say because they're the Browns.
All right, I'll try to give you a reasonable answer here. I think that Steelers are going to match up actually pretty well wide receivers to defensive backs here. I know that Ben, like I said, only has that 1 quarter of football in the past 4 or 5 weeks at this point. But when he was able to do during that quarter of football, he was throwing multiple 30-yard passes downfield. We saw Mason Rudolph do it this past week against Cleveland. They've gotten some. I don't know if you're excited or you're not what I'm saying here, but
no, I yawned and then I had a tear in my eye just because the weather sucks here and I get tears in my eyes sometimes.
All right, gotcha. We've seen the Browns secondary struggle throughout the year. I know they got a couple guys.
I was
back,
really thinking about the ending of Thelma and Louise, and it really kind of touched me. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just don't think that Cleveland has pieces in the secondary to stop the Steelers the way some other teams have, even with the press coverage. I think Pittsburgh will find a way to keep passes here. I do see a situation where the Steelers maybe trail by 7 or 3 points at halftime, but Pittsburgh has had a habit of coming back in the second half of the season and finishing games well. On the other hand, generally doesn't do that. So I think Pittsburgh will win in the second half of this game.
All right. Now, he's a homer. Let's go ahead and get to the people that will have an unbiased opinion. Steve Risley, what do you think? Pittsburgh versus Cleveland?
I tell you what, Pittsburgh has a way of taking opportunity and turning it into retreat. They have that ability from time to time. They're not as solid as, say, a Tampa Bay, where you're just not going to beat Tampa Bay on mistakes. I can see Pittsburgh making mistakes. Right now, I think that Cleveland's in a position that they have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and they're playing unabashed fun football, and they have a pretty good weaponry. In terms defensively, I don't know how strong Cleveland is defensively. And Roethlisberger is no spring chicken. I've never been a proponent of sitting guys out for an entire game. I mean, I understand you want to rest them, but you got to at least give them a quarter. And, for a lot of those Pittsburgh guys to not even make the trip on the last game, not even get on the team plane, I don't know. I don't think it created any dissension. I'm gonna pick the upset here. I'm gonna go with Cleveland. I think Cleveland's gonna find a way to just eke this thing out on a last drive. I think this game's gonna come down to a last field goal or a last drive. And I'm looking Cleveland right now.
I think we still overlook the players missing on the Pittsburgh defense. I think they're going to have trouble stopping the run. I think you see a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets, Teets. I think you see gap and zone runs with Chubb and Hunt. And I hate to say this, Baker Mayfield's going to have a big game, play action. He's going to surprise the world. The Cleveland Browns are going to smack the Pittsburgh Steelers right in the mouth. Am I wrong, McGinnis?
No, you're not.
Oh, all right. So we got 3 out of 4 picking the Browns.
You're out there on your own, buddy.
Yeah,
apparently. I know that feeling.
Teets is always on his own.
No. I think he's smarter than you are, good pastor, but that's all right.
Well, I mean, if you pay attention to the show, I mean, how many times has he been the one right and I was the one wrong?
I don't know. I think I get more picks right every week than both of you.
I don't think that's just you were on like 4 shows and you won once or twice. Good for you. Give you a milk bone. So, Sammy, you want to go ahead and tell us why you think the Cleveland Browns will beat the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Because Ben Roethlisberger will make mistakes. He'll throw a pick or two. I don't trust him. He can't throw the ball deep anymore. And I think Steve actually did get something right in the fact that that the Browns will be motivated, and it's always kind of been Baker Mayfield's thing to have a chip on his shoulder. It's a great thing that he'll have a chance to just go out and blow somebody up, and I think he's got a shot. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Steelers won, because you got to understand they did almost lose to frickin' Mason Rudolph. So it wouldn't actually surprise me to see the Steelers win, but you do have to pick some upsets here and there, and I think this is the one to pick.
Yeah, I think there's going to be – it's just not going to be the 6 favorites to win. Greg Gorecki chimes in. He is probably the smartest listener here, and he picks the Browns 30-21. And I know he's disgusted with Sam Teets right now too. But remember, Sam Teets, deep down, knows the Cleveland Browns are going to win, but he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And that raucous 6,000 fans in Pittsburgh are going to make the difference, right, Teets?
Yeah, they're only letting families in, I'm pretty sure. So you're not going to have the usual terrible towels.
Everybody, hey, all I know is I've been to Pittsburgh, and everybody in Pittsburgh's related.
You're always hating on the city of Pittsburgh, Mike.
Well, there's not anything to like. Except
Including
Willie Stargell. I like
there.
Willie Stargell.
Including Jennifer Beals?
Do you know? Oh, wait a second. Who's Jennifer Beals, Sam Teets?
You won't know.
McGinnis got worried
I'm
because he
Googling
thought
right
I was
now.
specific.
Hold up.
Jennifer Beals, Flashdance,
You ever
correct?
saw Flashdance?
What a
Oh.
feeling. What a feeling.
What do you do with your life?
I mean, Risley watches movies till
Alright.
4 in the morning, wakes back up at 7, and continues watching movies.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
not
I
a
live in
movie Risley's
Hollywood.
never
That's-
seen.
What you got to do to be relevant out here.
Actually, I think you work in movies to be relevant. You're not relevant. You just watch them. I watch movies sometimes. Most of the movies I watch are old, though. Good
Me too.
movies.
Turner Classic Movies.
I know. If it ain't black and white, it's not for me.
It's got to be
The
film
only
noir.
good movies. Film noir. You ever hear of film noir, Sam McGinnis?
No.
I have not.
Jeez. Teets, you're graduated from college. You ever hear of film noir?
I have.
Have you?
I know what it is.
How do you know what it is if you've never seen a black and white movie ever in your life?
It gets brought up here and there. It's something that I did have a college class. It was like the history of film or something like that I'd take for one reason or another.
He
So I
saw,
did hear a
wait,
little bit about
Mike. He saw Schindler's List.
All right, so Teets, what's your definition for film noir?
Oh, that's not fair.
that.
No, he
what
knows
the
what
heck?
it is.
How am I
Dad.
supposed to encapsulate that in a definition?
Well, it's pretty easy. It
Uh,
basically describes a stylish Hollywood crime
It's a
drama.
period in
the way-
time of when
the way
movies were
start-
made,
No,
Sam.
it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's frequent use of flashback, integral plots, an understanding of existential philosophy.
Which was popular in the
stark
late
lighting
40s, early
effects.
50s with mostly detective and gangster movies.
Well, the setup. Have you ever seen The Setup? One of the best movies ever made. It's a boxing movie. I'm not even going to ask Teets if he's seen The Setup. It was like 1948, John Garfield. Great
One of
movie.
the best film noir movies, Sunset Boulevard.
It's all right. All right. We got any other NFL news to talk about, Mr. Teets?
Other than the fact that Deshaun Watson apparently is very upset. Texans did not consult him when they were going to hire a general manager. Apparently, they said they were going to talk with him, have discussions with him about hiring the head coach and general manager, and proceeded to hire one without even telling him about it. And he basically found out through Twitter.
That's all right. He's coming to the Colts anyway.
No, he's not. He's not coming to Indianapolis. He'll go to a real city before he goes to Indianapolis.
Well, I don't say anything about Indianapolis as being a city, although it's a nice city. But
Sure, it's awesome.
that's a pretty damn good offensive line to be stuck with for the next 4 or 5 years of your career.
Yeah. And a pretty not damn good wide receiving core to throw to.
That can be bought.
And it's much better to go to San Francisco where they have maybe a better offensive line when healthy, a better running game with Raheem Mostert, and a better defense, and a better head coach. That's just my opinion, though.
I'll take Garoppolo.
You can have Garoppolo, and you won't win. Garoppolo is Garoppolo. He's always going to be ranked between 10 and 15.
And the Bengals record is what the last 20 years?
The Bengals went to the
What does that
playoffs
have to do
5
with
straight years.
Okay.
I don't know what the Bengals record has to do with it. I don't sit here and say anything about my team. You're just pissed off because you don't have Joe Burrow. You got Phillip Rivers, which means this is probably the last time you're going to be in the playoffs for a while.
But
And
there's
you're
a
going to get
reason.
your ass kicked.
There's a reason we don't have Joe Burrow, because we didn't finish dead ass last the year before. So therefore, we won't have Joe Burrow.
No, what you did is you finished dead ass getting beat up in the playoffs, and then what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And then you drafted what? You know what? Without being dead ass last in 1998, the Colts would reside in Los Angeles, and they would have for the last 20 years. And Indianapolis wouldn't even have the NCAA there anymore because nobody would care because it would be an irrelevant city. So the fact that they finished last and got the first pick in 98 or 99 is the only reason the Colts are even relevant. Because
where
they got
where is the Final Four this year?
In Indianapolis, because they got
what are they
Peyton
doing? They're playing pretty much the entire freaking tournament in Indianapolis.
Because Indianapolis will grease the NCAA and do whatever the NCAA says. So if the NCAA says bend over, Indianapolis touches their ankles.
And that's why we don't have to have the good citizens of Indianapolis pay for our stadiums.
Really?
Yeah. Unlike Cincinnati.
Unlike Cincinnati.
Mike
Great
Brown would be cheap. Let's get back to football.
Wait a second. The only reason Irsay looks like a decent owner is because his team sucked. He's a drunken alcoholic with multiple DUIs. He's a pathetic human being. And if they don't get Peyton Manning, once again, he'd have sold the team or moved the team to Los Angeles. All right, Sam Teets, anything else you want to bring up that'll turn into something completely different?
No, I think we got covered everything for today.
All right. So, Steve, I hope your COVID clears up. And if it's not COVID, you're a sissy because you shouldn't say you got COVID. Everybody thinks they got COVID.
I have never said
sick.
I have COVID. You said I have COVID.
Yo, you told me on the phone that don't you lie. We'll get you.
Oh,
on the phone.
you're in my bed talking to my wife.
See that? Hey, you know, this could be
This
like
is the part we have the show.
hey, let's do this. Let's do this. If I look this way and Sam looks at me, we'll be like the Brady Bunch.
What?
If I look this way and Sam looks at me, we'll be like the Brady Bunch. You ready, Sam?
I know what that is.
On the count of three, Sam, look the way you just looked. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, there you go. It's a story of a lovely lady. His name's Steve Risley. We'll be back Monday at 1 o'clock. I guess Sam Teets would be like Greg, because Greg was a creeper. And you got a beard. People with full beards are creepy. Don't you think, McGinnis?
It's not that I don't like them. It's just I don't like how they feel, so I usually try and shave them.
McGinnis, you know if you try to grow a full beard, there'll be patches.
Grow one, you guys. Don't start with me.
I think you hurt his feelings. We got to get McGinnis a bodyguard. All right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap it up. Remember, check us out at Rockfin. Make sure you go there. Manscaped.com, promo code TG20 for 20% off your first purchase. Follow Steve Risley at SRisley34. Follow Sam Teets at Sam Teets33. Follow Sam McGinnis at
Samuel McG22.
Samuel McG22. All right, guys, you can follow me at Grilling Truth. We will be back at 1 o'clock on Monday. Are both of you guys coming back with me and Mr. Teets?
Sure.
All right.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, you got to be a school teacher, Sam, because Mr. Teets sounds like a serious teacher name. Am I right, McGinnis?
Yeah, it kind of does. It's like the scary teacher that for whatever reason has a paddle behind the desk. You know, that kind of teacher.
Oh, man. And see, me and Ridley are old enough.
Stop right there.
Have you ever seen a teacher with a paddle behind the desk there, Teets?
Actually, I might.
See, I'll tell you, I used to have a teacher. His name was Mr. Rankin. He was the music teacher, and he had a big-ass paddle. And I bet Risley had some teachers like this that had big holes in it, you know, which would scare you because the wind would go through and he's swatting you. And and if you did something bad, which of course I never did, he would send all the kids out of the classroom and just keep the one kid back there. And everybody stand out in the hall while you hear this. Yeah, those were good times. That's why kids were better behaved back then. Ain't that right, Risley?
Yep.
All right. And see, he taught at a place called Aurora High School, which is a tiny high school that had like 6 people in it. And they made it all the way to the Final 16 in the state of Indiana in 1977. And they played this giant who was going to IU. He was like 6'8" and scored like 40 points a game. And in this team with like 12 kids in the entire school, I think they only had 3 kids in the game playing. And they beat that team with the giant that went to Indiana University. Do you remember that, Risley?
Very well. One of the greatest high school basketball games I ever played in.
Yeah, but unfortunately, not one of the greatest games he ever played.
Well, I didn't win, so that's all right. That's what the legend and lore of Indiana basketball.
I hadn't brought that up in like a
Oh,
year,
no.
so I just figured I'd bring it up.
No problem.
Okay, no problem. It's the only thing that ever happened good in Aurora, Indiana, except for when we got the Dairy Queen. The Dairy Queen was a pretty big deal. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. So for now, for Sam McGinnis, Steve Risley, Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpasture. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.